So for section 3, we're going to be talking about finding increase and decrease. And we're still going to be kind of looking at the percent type problem. So we're going to be finding like percentage of increase, percentage of decrease over time. So in order to find the amount of increase or decrease in a percentage problem, we have to first figure out like how much the amount of increase or the amount of decrease is. And so that's when you always take the amount that you've ended on, or like the newest amount that they gave you, and you subtract away your original. If the new amount is larger than the original amount, then it's going to be a percent of increase because you're going up over time. If the new amount is smaller than your original, that would be a decrease then because it's going down. So even just by looking at the numbers, we should be able to tell if it's going to be positive or negative. So all they want us to do for these first couple of problems is figure out what's the amount of increase or the amount of decrease. So number 1 says that David's salary increased from $58,240 to $63,190. What is the amount of increase? So I would take his new salary, $63,190, and subtract his old $58,240. And that gets me an amount of an increase there of $4,950. Okay, so you guys look at number 2. A coat was marked down from $98 to $79. Figure out what the amount of the markdown would be. So how much did this coat get marked down? Good, $19. So if you did it the way that we did up there, you would be taking 79 minus 98, which would get you negative 19. And since we're talking about dollars here, they subtracted $19 from the cost. So I also would be okay if you just said that it was $19 less or something like that. Something that says that you know it went down instead of going up. It didn't increase by $19, it decreased. Now to find the amount of change using a percent of change, so instead of them giving you the two amounts like we saw with the salary and with the price of the coat, they might say that it increased by 5% or it decreased by 6% or something like that. We solve these just a little bit differently. To find that amount of change, you take the percent of change, make sure that you're using those as decimals. So you're taking your percentages divided by 100, and then you take that times the original amount, so however much you started with. So for this first one, it says that technical assistants at Best Buy are to receive a 4% increase in wages per hour. If they were making $19.25 per hour, what is the amount of increase per hour to the nearest cent? And then what's the new wage going to be? So we start at $19.25. It's increasing, they say, by 4%. What would be 4% as a decimal? Good, 0.04. So we're going to take 0.04 times 1925. Okay, so I would grab a calculator and do that. So we get 0.77. So they are making 70 cents more per hour. So this would be the wage increase. So what would we do then to figure out how much they're making per hour now? Good. Okay, and that comes out to be $20.02. So 2 answers here. 77 cents is the increase. $20.02 is how much they're now making per hour. Okay, so if you guys go to the next page and look at number 2, says that molten iron shrinks 1.2% while cooling. What is the cooled length of a piece of iron if it is cast in a 24 centimeter pattern? So I want you to find two things here. Figure out how much it's going to shrink by, and then figure out, after you know your shrink amount, your shrinkage, how long is it going to be now. So I want you guys to take a couple minutes and do this problem. So to find the amount that it shrinks by, what did you guys do? That gets you the answer times 0.8. Where'd you get 0.8 from? You're going to be off by a little bit. I get what you're... Instead of doing times 0.8 though, you're going to do 0.988 because it's shrinking by 1.2%. So 100 minus that would be 98.8. Yeah, so what he's doing is, instead of doing like the 24 times 0.012 like this, because this would get you the amount that it shrinks by. So if we do this 24 times 0.012, that gets us 0.288. So that's how much it's going to shrink. So then we take 24 and we subtract that. And what'd you guys get? $712. So if you did what you were trying to do, this is like doing the direct calculation instead of having to subtract. You take 100% and you subtract that 1.2%. Okay, and that gets us 98.8%. That means that 98.8% is how much the length is going to be. Think of it like when you do a discount problem. If you're buying something that's 25% off, you still have to pay 75% of the cost of that item. That's what we're doing here. If you do that 24 times 0.988, you should still get 23.712. So you could check that. And I'm still getting 23.712. That's like the direct calculation, instead of having to find the shrinkage and then subtracting. The only reason why you would maybe want to do the first one is if they ask, like, how much does it shrink by? If they want to know how much you have to lose. But this actually gets us right into what I was going to go over next, which is how to do a direct increase or decrease problem. So instead of doing that extra step where we had to like add or subtract the amount to it, we can just go ahead and do one calculation and it gets us the answer right away. So for the increase, we would do 100% plus your rate, so plus 7% or 12% or whatever it is. And then like I just showed you on that last one, to do a decrease, you do 100% minus that rate. And then all you have to do is multiply that number as a decimal still times your amount to figure out what the direct answer would be. Like I said, this is helpful if you don't need to know like how much the amount is that you're losing or you're gaining. You just want to know the final answer. So medical assistants are to receive a 9% increase in wages per hour. If they were making $15.25 an hour, what is the new wage per hour to the nearest cent? So step 1 that I would do is take 100% and add that to 9%. That gets us a total of 109. And I'm adding it because it's increasing. Now, what would be 109% as a decimal? 1.09. So then, for step 2, we're going to take 1.09 times our 1525. And you get 16.6225. But since we're talking about money here, you got to round it so that it's dollars and cents. So it'd be $16.62 is how much they're going to be making now. Okay, so number 2, a pair of jeans that originally cost $49.99 is now advertised as 70% off. I want you guys to find the sale price. $14.99. You say 15? If you round up, it'd be 15. So you guys took $49.99 times what? So 0.3 for 30% because it's 70% off, which means we have to pay 30% of the price. And when you do that, you get 14.997. Now, if they wanted you to round it, because that 9 is followed by 7, it rounds up to zeros, so it probably would round up to $15 for our sale price. All right, if we flip the page over, so this next one says that a 3% error is acceptable for the machine part to be usable. If the part is intended to be 57 centimeters long, what is the range of measures that are acceptable for this part? So first, let's figure out like what the percent of change would even be. So I'm going to kind of break this into a couple steps. First thing I'm going to do is do my combined percentage, so 100% plus 3% would be 103%, which is the same thing as 1.03 if I want to write that as a decimal, if I divide by 100. So step 2 is we take the length of our part, which is 57, so that's the ideal length, and we take this times that 1.03. So that's going to be 58.71 centimeters. So this would be like the largest. Anyone have an idea of how I would find the smallest? Subtract 3% instead of adding 3%, right? So I would do the same like 2 steps here. Whoops. I would do 100% minus 3% instead of adding it, because this would be like the amount of decrease that I'm okay with. So that's 97%, which is 0.97 as a decimal. Then we take that times 57. So you get 55.29 centimeters. So that would be the smallest measurement that would be acceptable. So the range would be anything from 55.29 centimeters to 58.71 centimeters would be acceptable for this in order for it to be usable. So anything outside of that range would not be good for whatever this machine part is. So with the subtracting from 100, that gets us into this idea that we have called a complement. So the complement of a percent is the difference between 100% and the percent that they gave you. So you always just take 100 minus the number that you're working with to find the complement. So it's super easy to find them. So if I wanted to find the complement of 25%, I would just take 100 minus 25 and get 75%. That would be its complement. Okay, so take a minute and write down what the complements of 80% and 36% would be. So what's the complement of 80%? 20. And how about number 3? 64. Next, we're going to get into estimating a little bit, and we're going to estimate like how much we'd have to pay for something for a sale item. So this is useful if you're somewhere and you know that you have like so much money that you need to spend, or you have like a budget of a certain amount, and you've got something in the store that's on sale, and you're trying to figure out like what is it going to maybe cost me. You can try to do some of this mentally without having to like pull out a calculator and find the exact amount with the discount. So in order to estimate, we're going to follow these steps. We're going to round the original price and the percent to numbers that we can work with a little bit better mentally. And then find the complement of the rounded percent. So take 100 minus your rounded percent there. Relate that complement to 10% by dividing it by 10. And then find 10% of the rounded original price. Multiply those results. So I'll show you how to do this, and then you guys will be able to practice one. So this is asking us to estimate the amount that we're going to have to pay on something that costs $49.99 and it's advertised at 70% off. So $49.99 is really close to $50. So I'm going to go ahead and round that to $50. Now 70% off is already a nice even percent, so I don't need to round that anywhere. It can stay at 70%. So I've got my rounding done. That takes care of like this first step. The second step is to find the complement. So remember, that's what we were just doing. We're taking 100 minus 70 to get 30%. Okay, that takes care of the second step. Now what they want me to do is to relate this by dividing 30% by 10%. So they're trying to get rid of the percentage here. So we take 30 divided by 10%. The percentage signs are going to be gone, and we're going to be left with a 3. That takes care of the next step. So then, fourth step says find 10% of the rounded original price. And 10% is an easy thing to do mentally because you're just thinking about moving the decimal place. So 10% of $50. Remember, 50 has a decimal here, so you just move it to the left 1. So 10% would be $5. Last step is to multiply the 3 and the 5 together. So 15. So that means I'm estimating I'm going to have to pay $15 for this item. Now, if I wanted to check my work, I could take 49.99 and take it times 0.3, and I get 14.997, which is really close to 15. So that would be a way to know that you did it right, is you can go and actually find the true amount that you would pay and make sure that it's fairly close to what you found for your estimate. Okay, so I want you guys to try the second one there. It says estimate the amount that you're going to pay on a $28 item advertised at 18% off. I'm going to help you and just say I would round $28 to 30 and 18%, I would round that to 20%. Now follow those steps from up above. I've already done the first one for you. I've rounded them for you. I want you guys to do the rest of them. So first step is to find the complement. How do we do that? What's the complement of 20%? 80. We would just take 100 minus 20, which would be 80%. What would be 10% of 80%? Or what's 80% divided by 10%? Be 8, right? 80 divided by 10 is 8. Okay? Now we do 10% of our estimated price. So what's 10% of $30? $3. So we take 8 times 3. So how much am I expecting to pay for this? What's 8 times 3? 24. Okay, and again, if I wanted to, I'm going to take $28 times 0.82, because that would be the complement of 18%. I get 22.96. So that would be, it's, almost $23, which is really close to 24. So I'm assuming I did this right then because my estimate's not way off. So as long as you're fairly close, like either you're really close or I would say like $1 or $2 off. Anything more than that, you're probably getting too far away from your estimate. You might have done something wrong when you were doing your work. All right. Next thing here is to find the rate or the base in increase and decrease problems. So we've got a couple formulas here that we're going to be able to use to find either the rate of increase or decrease. So that would be using the percentage formula, because remember, rate would be your percentage. So if you don't remember, R is your rate. And so P over B, like if we're talking about portion over the base from before, P would be talking about the amount of change. So how much it went from the original to the new over your original amount. If you were wanting to find the base or you were wanting to find the original amount, so like where you started from, we used the base percentage formula, which was B equals P over R. And so P would still be that amount of change. So that doesn't change anything there. That's the same as it was in the first formula. And then R would be your rate of change. So that would be your percentage that they're giving you in the problem. So number 1 says a worn brake lining is measured to be 3 over 32 inches thick. If the original thickness was 1/4 of an inch, what is the percent of wear? So how much has this been worn down over time? And we're looking for a percent of wear, which means that we're looking for the rate. So you're going to use R. So the R equals P over B formula from up above. So the first thing we need to do though is figure out how much it has changed. What's the amount of change here? So it started at 1/4. So like when the brakes were brand new, their lining was 1/4 of an inch. Then we want to subtract away what it is now, which is 3/32. Okay? Use your calculator to help you subtract fractions. You don't have to do the long way if you don't want to with common denominators. So I get 5/32 if I type that in to my calculator. So that's how much it's changed over time. So step 2 is to use that equation from up above. So I put the amount of change over the original amount to find my rate. So I'm going to take the amount of change, 5/32, divided by the original amount, which is 1/4. Again, if you're doing this the long way, you'll have to multiply by the reciprocal, or just type this into your calculator. Your calculator can divide fractions for you, so you don't have to. And so this comes out to be 0.625. How would I write that number as a percentage? Like, what do I need to do to 0.625 to get it to be a percent? Times by what? A 100. So you get 62.5%. So that would be how much it's worn. Okay, number 2. At Best Buy, the price of a DVD player dropped by 20% to $179. What was the original price? So this is, we're trying to find the base. So remember that was the equation P over R. So to find this, what we're first going to do is, we know that it dropped by 20%. So if we were able to go backwards, that means that we had to spend 80% of the cost in order to get to that 179. So I'm going to find the complement, 100 minus 20, to get my complement of 80%. So to get my original amount, my B, my base, I'm taking the amount that it is now, so how much it changed to, which is 179, and I divide by the percent, or the rate of change, which was 80%, or 0.8. So I take 179 divided by 0.8. That comes out to be $223.75. So that's how much it was before. They say nearest dollar up here. So if I wanted to round it, I would go up to $224 because it's closer to that. So that would be for the rounding.